I've been investing for about 5 years now, so in this video, I'm going to show you my portfolio, including exactly what I'm invested in, and I'm going to tell you how much I've actually invested versus how much I've just gained in the market, basically passive income, and hopefully this video shows you the importance of investing early and often. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Layla and I talk about all things personal finance. Quick disclaimer that this is not investing advice. I'm literally going to show you my portfolio and exactly what I'm invested in. So this is for entertainment and information purposes only. Please do your own research. Happy to answer any questions, but yeah, not actual investing advice. Right off the bat, I will tell you that my portfolio is made up of a 401k, my Roth IRA, and then my brokerage account. Over the last few years, I have invested or contributed about $56,017. However, at the time of me filming this, my total portfolio is about $93,049. So just from passive income, market gains, dividends, compound interest, that sort of thing, I have gained $28,106. So I'm gonna go into quite a bit of detail in this video. First, I'm gonna start by sharing my investment journey, how I got started with it, how I learned about it. It was definitely not a smooth path. This wasn't like I knew exactly what to do. This wasn't that I opened this, and that's what I've had since the beginning. Things have definitely changed over the last decade, so I will definitely explain that, and then I will go into exactly what I'm invested in. We're gonna go back a few years, probably about a decade. I am currently 31 years old at the time of me filming this. My first exposure to investing was life insurance, unfortunately. I was probably around 20 or 21 when I first had an interest in investing, and I think the first way that I started ever hearing about investing was from Tony Robbins. I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins, especially back in the day. Like, I listened to him so much. He was a huge motivation for me as far as like my personal development, but he often would touch on finances in some of his seminars. So yeah, again, around 2021, I went to my dad and I told my dad I want to start investing. So he said, okay, let's set up a meeting with, we'll call him Joe. Okay, so there's this guy that I'm gonna be referring to. His name is not Joe in real life, but that's what I'm gonna say, Joe. Joe was a man that I saw fairly frequently growing up. So he was always coming to our house like every few months or so because he was my dad's financial advisor as I was growing up. So I would, sometimes talk to him. He would see how I'm doing, but most often I would see him sitting at the kitchen table with my dad. They would be talking about finances. So I did trust this man. Like, I thought he was going to lead me down the right path because yeah, I always saw him. I also want to add here that yes, my dad did lead me down the wrong path as far as investing goes, but he is an immigrant. He comes from the Middle East. So he was doing the best with the information that he had, and he was not taught finances, obviously. He came to the United States when he was about 20 or so, and his parents had already passed. So any financial education, he did not have that. So yeah, my dad was giving me the best with what he could. And so I don't blame him for this decision, but it definitely did set me back. Now, going back to Joe, he is a Transamerica financial advisor. So they sell life insurance and long-term care. So you can already see where this is going. Well, I had this meeting with Joe and he was explaining this investment to me. It was very confusing at the time. It still is confusing, but at that age I was like, okay, this is just a hard thing to comprehend. Like, he was explaining it to me and I did not understand it, but I was like, okay, I trust you, let's do this. And he was explaining it to me as if it was an investment, that it's going to be what I'm going to retire with. He was showing me that it's going to grow by this much at this age and that it has guaranteed returns, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, me being uneducated on the topic and being very young, I decided to move forward. And this is something that I started investing in on a monthly basis. And I think at the beginning I was putting in like maybe 200 something every month, and this was life insurance. So keep in mind that this was life insurance sold to me as an investment, which, there's probably going to be some people who are like saying that it is an investment and blah, blah, blah. It's usually the people who sell life insurance who want to argue that, and that's fine. that's, kind of jumping ahead here. That is not my approach to investing now. And I don't want to have life insurance. I don't have any dependents. I don't have children. It's not something that would be a part of my portfolio, okay? So long story short, I was adding to this on a monthly basis for years, and actually several years in a row, I wanted to close this account. I wanted to cancel it, but then I would have a meeting with Joe and he would just he would basically scare me out of closing it and convince me that it was the best thing I could be putting my money into. I did at one point lower the monthly contribution. I went to as low as I possibly could, which I think came to $90 per month. But ultimately, I realized that this was not the investment for me. In simple terms, I thought it was a stupid plan, so I decided to cancel that policy. And I never got any of that money because the cash out value was zero. So I lost $7,000. So I technically started investing earlier, but I don't see any of that money because it was invested in life insurance. Now, also at some point around this period, maybe I was 21, 22, I was filing my taxes and I had very low income. So my CPA recommended that I contribute a couple grand to my Roth IRA. Now, please don't ask me how he was able to do this. I have no clue. So typically a Roth IRA, you do not get any sort of tax savings because of that. That's after you are contributing with after-tax dollars, so you won't see those savings until later. But something with my income being low and maybe my age and being in school, I don't know, he showed okay, if you contribute $2,000 to your Roth IRA, you're going to end up getting a tax refund, basically double the amount of what I was already getting. So that's what I did. When I was going to file my taxes, I had not contributed to my Roth IRA. I think maybe I did $2,500. So he was like, okay, if you can do $2,500, this is what your tax return will look like. And it was a larger tax return. So I'm not exactly sure what the specifics were there, but yeah, I think it was because of those factors. So because that was before April 15th, we agreed, okay, you'll put in that $2,000 or $2,500, and then that will allow me to make more on my tax return. So I did do that. However, unfortunately, my dad was like, oh, okay, then you're going to open your Roth IRA, go to State Farm to do that. I was like, okay, great. This is exciting. I'm actually investing money, So I went to State Farm. I remember the meeting. I remember speaking with the woman and setting everything up, but I have no clue what I was investing in, or at the time I did not understand exactly what a Roth IRA was. I know that my Roth IRA I set it up through State Farm, but it was managed through RBC Wealth Management. I have no clue what I was invested in. I remember I would log in and it was just a chart. I could see my performance, but I don't remember seeing a breakdown of what I was invested in. I didn't even see anywhere that I could add money to it. I think I had to call them if I wanted to invest more money. So basically that just sat there for a few years with the initial $2,000, $2,500 or whatever it was that I put in there. I never added more to it, and I just had no clue what was happening with it. And the reason I'm explaining all of this is because I was exposed to investing at a younger age, 2021, which is just very frustrating because the way that I went about investing was not correct. And I know that I lost thousands and thousands of dollars because of that. It was a huge opportunity lost. So that was my first experience with actually investing, but I feel like I didn't start truly investing until 2020. And that more so started so my debt-free journey started in 2018. And during that year, I was really just educating myself on debt payoff. I can make this possible. I started learning to budget and tracking my spending, all of those things. And then come 2019, I was at work. I remember this. I typed into Google, how can I stop working sooner, or something like that? How do I stop working at a young age? And the FIRE movement came up in the search result. And I think one of the first articles was Mr. Money Mustache. So I was introduced to the FIRE movement, and I started learning about how people who follow that path, how they invest their money. I also found the Choose FI podcast that year, one of my favorite podcasts. I literally listened from the beginning. I would be at work. I worked in the lab, so I would just have headphones in and listen back-to-back episodes while I was driving, while I was working, while I was doing everything from the beginning. And I learned basically everything about finances and investing from that platform. So that really shaped my financial education and my decisions around money. And they talk about financial independence, retire early, more so focused on the financial independence side. but they have specific investing strategies, and that's where I started like taking things more seriously. So after about a year of listening to them, it was, early 2020, and that's when I was like, okay, I am taking my money out of RBC Wealth Management and I'm opening a Roth IRA with Vanguard. So I feel like that is where my investment journey truly began. That was in early 2020. I set up my Roth IRA with Vanguard. I had about $2,700 in my Roth IRA with RBC Wealth Management. That rolled over. I wanted to invest in VTSAX specifically. That has a $3,000 minimum investment just for starting it. So I added in the $300 needed to hit that $3,000 minimum. And basically things have grown from there. So now I'm going to break down all of my accounts, what I'm invested in, and the growth that I've seen in each of them. I am going to start with my Roth IRA. As I just said, that is with Vanguard. I am on the performance tab. This is only showing my Roth IRA. You can see that I've put in $26,285.90. I've had a total return of 18.5%, and this is the amount, $14,248.77. That's how much it's grown just from dividends and gains in the market. For my Roth IRA, I am completely invested in VTSAX. So this is the total stock market, and I can show you a little bit more detail, the breakdown of everything here. So let's go back to the beginning. As I mentioned, back in 2020, I rolled that money that was in RBC Wealth Management over here, $2,720.89. Then I added in the $300 so I could hit that $3,000 minimum to purchase VTSAX, and you can see throughout 2020, I added a little bit. I think for the whole year, I only contributed $1,000. And the reason that I wasn't investing that much to my Roth IRA during this time, so 2020, 2021, was because of my job at the time. So I did have a full-time job. I was paid a salary, but they treated it as a scholarship. And so when you receive a scholarship as your salary, that's counted as unearned income, meaning you cannot contribute that money to a Roth IRA. It has to be earned income. It's a very weird system. I was basically a fellow through the program I was in. It's just, I don't know why they do that. I feel like they're being sneaky about things. But because of that, I could not contribute except with the extra money that I was making from my business, like YouTube and all of these things that I've been working on. So that's why it wasn't as much. Plus, I was still paying down my debt, so I was more so focused on that. In 2021, I contributed a total of $2,450. And then come 2022, I did get a new job, and it was just regular pay and not treated as a scholarship. So I was able to max out my Roth IRA for the first time in 2022. I maxed it out in 2023, and then I maxed it out again for 2024. I'm planning to max out my Roth IRA every year moving forward. That is a big goal of mine. So this year, it's also another $7K that we can do, but that is still pending. So in summary, for my Roth IRA, it's all in VTSAX with Vanguard, and I have seen an 18.5% return, or growth of $14,248.77. Now let's take a look at my brokerage account. Now this is also with Vanguard. Again, with this one, you can see the returns so far. So I have invested $9,146.43. I have seen a return of 24.5%, or $1,830.64. It's a larger return because it's a smaller amount invested. Now my brokerage account also has a bit of a story behind it too, because back in, I think it was in 2020 or 2021, I opened an account with M1 Finance and opened my brokerage with them. Now, everything was invested in VTI, which is the total stock market ETF for Vanguard. But a lot of the money that was in there, the money that was invested in there, was because of M1 Finance referrals. So I think that year when I first had it open, or maybe the second year, I made like $5,000, $6,000 in referrals alone. So it was not money from like my paychecks, but it came with me being on YouTube, like being a content creator. And yes, that was all over with M1 Finance. And then I didn't actually pull all of that money from M1 Finance until 2024. So early 2024, I moved it all over to Vanguard because M1 Finance started charging a $3 monthly fee. And I just wanted things more simplified anyway. I was already invested in a Vanguard ETF, so I was like, might as well bring it to Vanguard anyway. So I can show you the journey with this too, because I had opened this brokerage account back in 2020. I think I just wanted to see how it worked and what that would look like. I put in literally $1. I don't think it was even invested. So you can see for years, I did not invest anything to my brokerage accounts. And then I slowly started adding some money come 2023. And at this point, I was investing in VGT, which is Vanguard's Information Technology Fund. And then there were several months that I didn't invest anything. And then you can see May 2024, I pulled that $7,637 from M1 Finance, but that was invested in VTI, so that just carried over. And then, yeah, slowly investing all in VGT though. So my brokerage account is only made up of 2 Vanguard ETFs, so VTI. That is the largest chunk of my brokerage. I have 28.896 shares, and that's equivalent to about 8,675 of my brokerage. And then VGT, Vanguard's Information Technology ETF, I own 3.8 shares of that, equivalent to $2,351, altogether $11,026. So again, to summarize my brokerage account, it's primarily VTI, but also a little bit of VGT. And then as of right now, moving forward, if I do add money to my brokerage account, I will be probably purchasing VGT. In total, I have invested, and also from referrals, $9,146.43 to my brokerage. I've seen a return of 24.5%, and that is $1,830. The last account for me to go through would be my 401k, which is now a solo 401k. So I didn't have access to any sort of retirement account aside from the Roth IRA. Like I didn't have an employer plan until early 2022. So March 2022 is the first time that I ever contributed to a 401k. And I contributed through my employer for about 2 years. Okay, you can see at the time of me filming this, my 401k is at $41,507.79. This does say that all-time returns are 7.95%, and this 3,000 figure. That is inaccurate though, because this was rolled over from my employer plan into this solo 401k. So I've seen quite a bit more growth than that actually. This is just ever since I rolled it over. I will give that breakdown in just a minute, but I will show you here what I'm invested in. So I have a 50-50 split, 100% stocks, more Vanguard funds. These are index funds. So VIGAX, which is Vanguard's Growth Index Fund, and then VFIAX, which is Vanguard's S&P 500 Index Fund. There is this money market fund. There's nothing in there. It's just kind of like, you know, when transactions take place and some gets left behind, just depending on the cost of the shares. So I'm not actually invested in that. There's just a little bit of change being held in there. But yeah, I have a 50-50 split between the two of those. So just my contributions to the 401k, that comes to $20,586. That also includes what I've matched myself as the employer, because my solo 401k, I can contribute, and then I can also match what I contribute as the employer. So that's included in there. So if we look at just that figure compared to how much is in there, $41,507, I've seen $20,921 in growth. The other thing I should mention here too is that at the beginning, when I first opened my 401k with my employer, my old employer, I was invested in like their riskiest option. So I think it was like 8 to 10 different funds, including like maybe a small portion of bonds. And then at some point I had adjusted it to just be those 2 funds. And it's been like that for well over a year now. But anyway, it's also worth mentioning that my past employer was also matching 6% of my contributions. So while I was employed by them, they contributed $8,926 to my 401k. This is all traditional, by the way. That's what I prefer to do, a nice split between traditional 401k and then Roth IRA. But if we add that $8,926 to the $20,586 that I put in, that is $29,512. And then if we compare that to my $41,507 total, I have seen growth of $11,995. I would say either way, looking at that, they're pretty good numbers. It's pretty good growth. That is just completely passive income. In the past year, I've also contributed to a SEP IRA, but that's in the process of being rolled into this traditional 401k. I think the check is in the mail right now. Like it's making its way to my 401k, and that will be tacked on top of that number I just went through. So I won't touch on that. But to summarize everything together, I have invested / contributed a total of about $56,017 over the last 5 years or so. Obviously, there was some money that was invested way back in the day, but really that didn't benefit me, that 2,700 or so. If anything, I think I put in the 2,500 and it grew by the $200. So I can't say that investing the way that I did back when I was 21, 22 helped me. I really just would say that my journey started in 2020. So $56,017. If we include what my company matched while I was employed with them, that comes to $64,943. But my portfolio is worth $93,049 altogether. And honestly, I think that number is off right now because I typed this up before filming this, and I think I noticed my brokerage was a little bit higher compared to when I just was looking at it. So just from market gains, dividends, and compounding interest, truly passive income, I've gained $28,106. If we exclude what my company matched, then obviously I've seen even more gains, but that to me, that kind of counts as a contribution, you know? So just truly passive income over $28,000. Now I know that that may not seem like that much money, but this is just the beginning. It is something that's very slow to start, and me personally, I'm in this for the long game. Like I'm not day trading, anything like that. This is money that I plan to use when I'm older to live off of, you know? So I don't expect to touch this money anytime soon. So these numbers are gonna look way different even just 5 years from now. But imagine if I am investing on a regular basis over the next 30 years, things are going to be crazy. And I do want to share one piece of data from more recently, because the more that you have invested, the more that your money is going to work for you. It obviously does also depend on how the market is performing, but we had a really good year in 2024. So in 2024, I invested and contributed $16,922 of my own money. So that's across my Roth IRA, my brokerage, and my 401k. However, my portfolio grew by a total of $36,292. So basically double. I put in half of that and the rest of it was just passive income. And this is the beauty of investing, the beauty of compounding interest, because now my money has grown on its own. I'm going to put in more money, so that money will continue to grow. The money that my money grew before will continue to grow, and that is exactly what compounding is. It is absolutely worth it to start investing sooner rather than later. Obviously, look at your situation and determine what works best for you. But if you can start investing, I highly recommend educating yourself on it. I will have videos coming out soon all about investing, so stay tuned for that. But there is so much information out there. I know that it can be intimidating at first, and as you can see from my journey, it may not be perfect, but there's so many resources out there now that you should be able to find the education that you need. Get started on it. You don't have to do anything crazy. It may sound complicated and tough at first, but it really isn't. Like once you find your flow, you find what you want to invest in, just keep doing that. Keep in mind that you're in this for the long game. So you may see some dips, you're gonna see some growth. Don't be tempted to pull from it. Just keep on adding to it. Don't worry about those fluctuations. Just keep doing what you're doing, and then your future self will thank you. One final time, I will put up on the screen what I'm invested in across all of my accounts. Definitely do your own research. Let me know if y'all have any questions, but hopefully this was insightful. Hopefully this was helpful. I would really appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. It really supports my channel, and I'll see you in my next one.